and we were so privileged to have a fantastic global talk by N.V. Satyanarayana. When he talks about industry, and there is no better person who can give a industry perspective when it comes to LIS and information world. And so after listening to Satya's talk and getting global numbers and picture and all of that, now we are scaling down to individual, from industry to individual. So what I mean to say that my topic is more on to individual library professionals. So adjust your minds and adjust your thinking from Satya's industry level talk to the individual talk. So my topic is skills to scale up in LIS profession. And so the way I look at this is, Satya gave very beautiful narration about the spread of the industry and how LIS profession and non-LIS profession, both of them are open for LIS professional to really carve out a career. And so what I've done is, somebody also talked about the competency models and the skill set models and all of that. Now, before I start my presentation is, most of you might have heard about this when it comes to skill, when it comes to making a career. There is a saying in the industry, technical skills will give us a job and soft skills will make you a leader. So eventually, it's needless to say that each one of us would like to start a job and we would like to eventually end up as a leader. So there is a beautiful saying. So it's a combination of technical skill plus soft skill. The combination only will make us, get us big success. Now, my presentation plan is so very quickly I'll give an overview about LIS skills and also industry skills, what are really relevant now and what we need to focus on, and LIS skills applied in academics. So what I've done here is, uniquely, when it comes to talking about skills, there are two ways to talk about. One is look at international professional associations like ALA, SLA, and all these things, and they have competency model, they have skill models, and we can relate that to LIS schools in India, and we can talk all of that. The second way, what I was thinking is, let's look at two best institutes in the world. I worked for GE, and we worked there for 15 years. We did a lot of projects. We applied a lot of skills. Let's quickly look at what are the skills we applied and how we really excelled in that. And second one is, I joined 2.5 years back the IISc, which is #1 academic institute in India, and we did some experiments, and we'll show you them as well. So we look at the projects we have done and initiatives we have taken from the skills application point of view. So we can learn the initiative, we can look at the skills we applied, and that can really give some ideas for the younger generation. And then fourth point, I'll give a summary of skills and what makes an impact, and then we'll look at soft skills in little detail. So that's the presentation plan. Now, as I said earlier, professional associations, particularly IFLA, SLA, Special Library Association of US, and British Library Association, now that's renamed as the CILIP, they all, if you go to their websites, they all have developed very good competency models, and we get a lot of information on that. Since anyway it's there on website, and all these are being taught in library schools, so I'm not going to touch upon that. As I said earlier, I focus on looking at these skills being applied globally, both in corporates and in academics, and which kind of skills we applied and what it got resulted into, and what can we learn out of it. That's the kind of a thing I would like to show. So I will take two examples. One is library and information science departments. What are the initiatives or projects they have done, and in academic institutions. So since I'm working for IISc, I joined 2.5 years back. I would like to pick up some initiatives, some projects we did from Library Information Center and the technical skills demanded for that project. So that way, that will give you what skill sets you will really apply. And take an example of IISc. All of these initiatives we have started in last 2.5 years. So the first one, we did transitioning is 2.5 years back, up until 2.5 years back, IISc was having department-wise email servers, and there was no organization-wide IT platform. For IISc, very quickly they rolled out Microsoft Office 365 as a platform for the whole of IISc, and they started Microsoft Azure's cloud infrastructure for all projects, and then so email server became central. So in library, we were forced to transition to cloud infrastructure. So when it comes to library had multiple applications. Many of you know that we have a lot of legacy applications in library. So we run ePrint server, we have thesis and dissertations database, and we have a website and a lot of applications. So what we did, we were one of the first department in IISc to transition all our applications from library to cloud. So when it comes to skill, though we are library information science professionals, there is a need for understanding how networking works, what is virtual machine, and how the Microsoft cloud server Azure functions and all of that. So the result of that is now, so all our applications, library management application, thesis and dissertations database, ePrints, library management application, and all our applications are sitting in the cloud, including mail system. So that is the first transition we did independent of IT system. So it's done by LIST. So that's one thing. So you can look at what kind of skills you need when it comes to managing a bigger libraries in the transition period. That was an example. Second thing is library transformation design. Many of you know that IISc library is 100+ year old and functionally very well designed, but not very contemporary when it comes to building and all. So we are designing a transformation plan to reposition the library as a knowledge center. And there's a lot of vision-related exercises in terms of positioning and all these things. I don't know how many of you had a chance to listen to Anil Kumar in the morning. Karnataka State Library Association has organized a webinar talk. Anil talked about the importance of the physical library in this context. And IIM Ahmedabad Library, in my opinion, it's one of the finest examples, not only in India, in the world, when it comes to transformation, changing from the physical, old school thought library to new age library. So that's the kind of thinking we are doing. We have planned, we got a budget sanction, and there's a lot of work on this. So this is another kind of a skill set what you expect when you join to bigger libraries and when you work on, transforming libraries from libraries to new age information centers. Then Raspberry Pi for OPAC. Again, IISc example. If you look at IISc, we have old systems and all of that. One of the first exercises we tried to do in IISc is cleaning up of all the old desktops and all of that. Then we figured out some monitors were really good and they were in great condition. Then I knew about this Raspberry Pi. I don't know how many of you know about Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is the cheapest computer available in the world today. Pay 3,000 rupees in Amazon, you can buy one Raspberry Pi. All you need is connect keyboard and monitor. It can run as low-end computer. And in fact, if you come to IISc, we run our 2 OPAC machines by running Raspberry Pi. So this is another innovative way of really running things. When you run chart of systems and all of that, and you can also show innovative approach by adopting the new cost-effective solutions for the library. So anybody can really, experiment with Raspberry Pi. You can go to Amazon or Flipkart; they're readily available. Take them and configure that. It's a very mini, chip kind of thing. So you see all of that. I forgot to get that available on party. So this is the kind of another way library science, particularly young library science professionals, when they get into library schools, instead of asking for systems, high-end things and all, you can showcase your skills, you can showcase your creativity, and you can be very innovative when it comes to implementing things. Then we also doing what we're doing in IISc is we're using MediaWiki for creating library manual. You might ask me, why are you using MediaWiki and why not MS Word or a PDF or HTML kind of thing? So MediaWiki is actually MediaWiki is very good in terms of keeping version controls. Anybody can edit. I mean, you can remember the Wikipedia, the way it works. And on Wikipedia, it's a collaborative work. You create something, somebody else can come in, pitch in, and they can modify, they do all of that. And beauty of that is you can keep track of all the changes. So when it comes to processes, policies, and manual, it's important to have a track of when we started, what are the changes we had, and how the whole process has evolved, if it has evolved. So from that point of view, it's important to really use MediaWiki. So we're using that. So that's another thing. So the skill set we expect from people who work on this project is, they should know HTML kind of a thing, and little bit of scripting, and installation, downloading of MediaWiki and things like that. So that's another thing. And I've taken examples carefully, not specific core to library science. I'm not talking anything about classification, cataloging, indexing, all of that. As Satya said, you can treat this as a non-LIS skills, but very much integrated to LIS. So that's the kind of example. And we also got an opportunity to execute a project for Department of Posts. Department of Posts, that comes under Telecommunication Department, Government of India, was looking, they have about 7 or 8 training centers across India. They approached us to develop a training and knowledge management system for Department of Posts, and we did that. That's where we used all the expertise what we had in library science. We used DSpace, ePrints, Koha, and all of that, and we rolled out that project. And today, Department of Posts has one integrated training and learning management system, which has integrated training calendar, expertise. They also have Koha inbuilt into that. So that became an integrated solution for that. So, I mean, the point here I'm driving is you not necessarily restrict your skills and your execution skills to library, and you can go beyond library and you can really contribute to the external world by applying the skills and we have in the team. The other thing is academic benchmarking, which is very common now. I think almost all LIS professionals are involved in assisting the institutional leadership, vice chancellors and all, to do academic benchmarking. So that's where you need to understand how how rankings like ARIA, NIRF, PhD, QS, understanding their algorithms and ranking parameters, and learning to search and extract information from databases like Scopus, Inspect, Cyval, Insights, and all of that. That's what we need. And so we are not only doing assisting ranking agencies related information, we also have identified, say, top 10 institutes in the world, or top 10 in Asia region, or top 10 of QS, top 10 of PHE. So we keep track of about 20 to 25 academic institutions which we think should be benchmarked with our institute. So it's a lot of work. It's a continuous work. Keep doing that, and we provide a lot of analysis and insights to leadership that really helps us to really position us better. So I believe most of the universities are doing. The scale may vary, but I know that most of the institutes are really involved in this kind of activity, which is a new skill. And data management, so while doing academic benchmarking, we did struggle to get required data from different departments. So we thought, and internally there should be some department or a team who can really manage data for the whole institute, both for internal purposes and for the external purposes. And IISc is the first university in India who started a formal department unit to manage data, and we call that the Office of Data. And it's not just an initiative, we are serious about that. In fact, a couple of months back, we did advertise for 2 positions of data officers, and we did extend offers, and we get 2 of them, and so we do a lot of work in that. And challenging things in terms of data management is, understanding data, getting data, and classification of it, and so then visualization of it, and then pulling out data, packaging it, all of that we are going to venture, and that's a big initiative, and that's very, very interesting and challenging profession to engage with, particularly for library information science professionals. And the last example I would like to take from IISc is it's a very simple experiment we did. So we also tried to experiment streaming of video content from library. So the best, it's about branding, creating awareness about services, resources, and all of that. And the best way to learn about video streaming is, any international airport. You go there, you look at the big screens and all of that. They have integrated software. They run the ads and all in different machines remotely, and they can set the timings. They can do all of that. So that software is very expensive, and we figured out something like that, and we put 25 licenses of streaming, and we have put few display boards across the library, and we can stream. We are streaming the content, and we also have a capability to extend that streaming to across the campus. So this is another thing library sense. Libraries can really engage and help in managing, creating awareness, and also managing brand for the institutions. And we also did a couple of other things, and we have not mentioned yet. One of the things is Kannan from Intellinet should be there here, and he's driving that IRINS profiling software. And IISc was one of the first institutes to really complete profiling of all IIScs, and we have done that. And so recently in the COVID period, everybody was struggling to give effective remote access, and we did experiment, and we implemented Shibboleth based single sign-on access to all our subscriptions, and we worked with Inflipnet, and so we used their Infed, and so we did that successfully. So a lot of experiments, and so the point here is, in academics also you have a lot of scope to really apply your skills, not necessarily in library science schools, like core library skills, but there are some examples I gave. So when a youngster or a young librarian, when they're looking for where I can make an impact, so it's as Satya said, when you are in institution, don't restrict yourself to only library circulation and all of that. Think about organization, see how you can really expand your service scope and impact to across the organization. So that was the point. So this is about academic institutions and what we can do, how we can really align ourselves beyond library and create an impact at the institution level. Now, with this, I'll also give some examples of corporates. What are the kind of initiatives a library can take in corporates, and how we can really create impact, and what kind of skills can be useful in corporate library. So in next slide, I'll talk about the LIS projects we did. I mean, me and my team, what we did in GE. And I was privileged to work for GE, and I was about 9 years, I was a global leader for GE for their information, knowledge management, and IP services. We had a team in global sites. So I have some very nice experience in executing some of them. So I'll show some of them. Now I'll take about 4 or 5 projects which we did in GE from Library Science Department, Knowledge Center, and you can learn these things. One is the tech transfer. So one of the things we used to do is GE was a big organization, and there used to be at least 1 or 2 acquisition and mergers. And whenever there was an acquisition and merger, we used to do tech transfer. What it means by tech transfer is, say for example, GE Healthcare acquired Amarsham. And so you have to transfer all the technical reports, patents, and everything. And they will be sitting in databases. Some of them are searchable, some of them are not searchable. That's where LIS skills will become handy, and go search in the database by technology keywords, by business, and all of that. Identify a list of all the technology reports, patents, and all of that as a part of that business, and verify that with attorneys and do the transfer of it. And it was a very critical job, and it was flawlessly and effectively done by the knowledge management team in GE. That was a big thing. So there you need to have, you can apply your LIS skills. Having good business understanding will help you more, and you need to understand the database structure of what you have created for storing reports and all of that. That was one. And second thing is copyright clearance. Even in India, in academics, everybody talks about copyright. But I'm sorry to say that I don't think there is any one single academic institution in India which is 100% copyright compliant. And the way we look at copyright in academics is different. The way we look at copyright compliance in corporates. So in corporates, GE used to say that compliance is first, business is second. we were running a knowledge center for 140 countries, and the knowledge center was the 100% copyright compliance center. So to be 100% copyright compliant center, it cost a lot of money. The way GE had accomplished that was they had a corporate membership with CCC, Copyright Clearance Center, that cost quite an amount of money. And then they also had a way to clear copyright for every piece of document. For library science, it will be surprising to know. I can give you one or two examples. Somebody asked for an article, and through document delivery service, we got that article, but we could not give that article. We told him that there was no way to clear copyright. Believe me, that article we did not deliver. He accepted that he cannot use because there was no copyright compliance. That was the level of copyright compliance people tried in corporates. So you need to know what is copyright. You know, when you are in a doubt to clear copyright, when there is a doubt, pay for it and clear. So if you want to become copyright compliant, or if you want to run your organization with 100% copyright compliant organization center, you have a CCC, that's Copyright Clearance Center of US, and you can become organization-wide member, and they give you permission to distribute any number of copies, provided you pay for the first copy. So, and similarly, CLA stands for Copyright Licensing Agency of UK. In India, there was an organization called Indian Reprographic Rights Organization, and that was active for some time. Now I don't think that's that active, so I don't keep track of that now. And you also need to have a lot of understanding about Creative Commons. So we did this. As I said, the scale and the scale you do things in corporates is very different. The way you do in academics. So in corporates, it really, walk the talk kind of thing. When you say copyright compliance, it has to be copyright compliance. So a lot of experience. And also there is a tool by name CCC called RightsLink. If you download and implement in your organization LAN, it can keep track of everybody's articles, access, download, all of that. At the end of the month, he can give you a bill saying that how many non-compliant, non-copyright compliant articles your organization has accessed, and he can give you an invoice. You can pay that. So if you have money and if you have an intention to really be compliant, there are ways to be run. You can run organizations as copyright compliant. So that was a lot of learning. And library science people can play a very effective role in that. And the third thing is IP patenting support. So Knowledge Center was part of the IP team in many organizations. In fact, I heard that recently, even in TCS, the whole Library and Information Center division has been aligned to the IP team. So when you join IP team, library science people are really cut out for doing some unique jobs. Every time when you want to file a patent, and somebody has to report a novelty report, it means somebody should tell them that nobody has worked in that area, and this is the unique novel report. Who can do that better than library science people? Because you know how to search databases, you know how to really do that. So we, in GE, my department was doing about 1600 to 1700 novelty reports per year. And so that was a good thing you can do in library science. DP stands for Defensive Publications. In corporates, most of the corporates, for academics, it's difficult to digest, but they don't really care for publications. Their focus is to file patents. If and only if they don't file patents, then they ask inventor to file for a publication. Publish a publication, they give us 6 months to 1 year time. If they don't publish in a journal, then we were asked to publish defensive publication. Defensive publication is nothing but a structured, scholarly kind of an article. Do it and go and publish in a public place called ip.com, and there are some websites. So the moment you publish that in a public place, it becomes prior art. Then others will not get copyright. So we used to do about 300 to 400 defensive publications, and library science people, a couple of them got trained to do illustrations as well. So this is the kind of a work libraries can engage and do that. Fourth one is Six Sigma. It was driven by organization. In GE, there was a policy that everyone who enters should do a Six Sigma, and Six Sigma is not just independent of your work. You should do a project which is actual project, what is being done in your department, and do that. In GE, we used to run a lot of services, newsletters, translation service, document delivery service, all of them. Every service of knowledge center in GE was a Six Sigma compliant, Six Sigma certified service. So that was the kind of a level. And when we hired a person to do document service in GE, so he was able to do only about say 50, 60 articles per month, because it's a lot of work then. Digital content was not fully up. He was searching, finding a lot of time, did all of that. When we trained in Six Sigma, at the end of second year, he could single-handedly deliver 12,000 articles per year. 11,000 to 12,000 articles he used to get for document service. There is only one person who could deliver that. That is the power of Six Sigma. And you can improve the processes, you can create an impact, and that gives you, very insightful ways to really streamline your operations and service, all of that. Anybody can enter that, and you can really help your processes, your operations, and all of that. And knowledge management, everybody talks about knowledge management. GE did in a very structured way. We had about 80 to 90 communities, and so for each technology we had a community for digital twins, artificial intelligence, and all of that. So if you go to that community, you get to see everything. You see the experts, you see the documents, you see the workgroups, you see everything, that discussion forum and all of that. It's a kind of a single point of contact for anybody who is working on that project. So for that, so we train people on SharePoint, and people be trained on creating taxonomies and all of that. So if you know SharePoint, and most of the knowledge management is being done by using SharePoint, Microsoft. It's a simple workflow tool, and with a minimum time you can learn all of that. Now, competitive analysis. So there was a team, and we used to get very often some tasks to really help do competitive analysis. So basically identifying data sources, getting that and doing analysis, and passing on that to the leadership to make decisions. So that was the thing. Then the other thing, which we did not in GE, in some other organization we did was integrated discussion forums. I mean, it was inspired by this forum. So I just had left IISc and gone to join an organization, a software company. So there, when somebody does a coding, when he gets in a doubt, whether coding problem or creating a loop or something like that, he often comes to a library to refer that manual. If he's programming an Oracle, he'll come and refer the Oracle manual. If he's doing something else, he come and refer manual. Very often people used to come and refer the manuals. Then we thought, why don't we really look at if there is any serious discussion forums on these things. For my surprise, when I went and searched, there was an effective discussion forum on every programming language, every operating system. And most of them were really created by top 10 universities of US. And there were about 10, I'm talking about 15 years back. There were about 10,000, 12,000 members to that. So we created that, and then we created awareness with all people, saying that you're doing a coding, you have a problem here. So if you have a problem, if your loop is not working, just text your query, and by the time you look at this side, within half an hour, they used to get answers, because that was the power of a discussion forum. So we created that. Of course, we also had some technical issues, because when you look at discussion forums, you get a lot of emails. Then the storage was a problem, and we addressed that in a meaningful way. But that became a very impactful kind of a thing. Even today, I haven't seen any organizations anywhere, creating integrated discussion forums as a problem-solving solution, problem-solving thing for software engineers. So that kind of a thing. So you need to understand how forums works. When we integrate, we did that by using Lotus. Please talking, can you mute your phone? So this is an example for corporates, what we do. The other project which we did is Tech Trends. It's an interesting project. In corporates, we end up buying a lot of technical reports. Say, for example, today morning, when Satya was showing all those charts, numbers, and all, he referred the outsell report. Each report will cost about $2,500 to $3,000. When you go to corporates, you find you find need for data pro reports, Faulkner reports, and KPMG reports, all of that. So in GE, one of the CTO had challenged the knowledge center if we can really do technology trends project in a different way. I'll tell you in 2 minutes what we did. Say for example, GE was in healthcare. Take healthcare literature getting published for last 5 years. Say if you go to Medline, you may see about 5 lakh records every year. 5 years if you take, 4 years if you take, 5 years if you take, you get 25 lakhs records. If you get 25 lakh records, download all the bibliographical data and look at only keywords. See, if each paper has 5 keywords, extract only keywords. Say 25 lakhs into 5 keywords. So how much it is? Say for example about 1 crore keywords. 1 crore keywords. Take all the keywords, don't look at anything, and then sort them by occurrence. Sort them. One keyword may, for example, cancer may appear 200 times. Sort all the keywords, and one keyword, say for example, COVID may not be there even one time. So sort all of them and bucket all of them. The technology trend, not necessarily the keyword which has got highest number of publications, or the keyword which got highest number of times. The technology trend could be the keyword which got appeared once. That was an insight. So we did all of that, and that became really, they applied for different things, and so that became a really interesting project kind of a thing. So you can, there are kind of a possibilities, with LIS background, with LIS skills, you can go and really do that kind of a thing. So I gave one academic experience, real projects, real skills application, and all of that at IISc, and I also recalled some of the initiatives we did in corporates, particularly in GE and Deutsche Software. So I wanted to give you a flavor that, as Satya said in the morning, your core of library science will give you a job, but if you want to really excel and grow and create a bigger impact, you need to really go non-core LIS field by applying the same skills what you have. That's where you can really excel as a profession. You can reposition yourself as an individual. You can really reposition your library as a more effective organization within the organization. So this is the thing. And then when it comes to skills, the skills we learn in schools are not enough, which is very common, not necessarily in library science. Go to computer science, go to management, go to science, go to, everywhere people always say that what teachers teach is not enough. But teachers also have limited mission, they can really teach only so much. And then sometimes whatever skills we learn, and you don't really get a chance to really apply all of them. Say for example, I'll give you 2 examples. When I passed out from NCSI 25 years back, I got a job in Deutsche Software. I knew HTML then, and I was proud to say that I was the only one in a software company who knew HTML then. So we ran the Omni HTTPD server, we created HTML pages, we did all of that. So what the point I'm saying is, the ideal school, ideal college, ideal department should be producing the students with the state-of-the-art skill. If you are not producing students with state-of-the-art skill which cannot be applied in the industry, then you are not making an impact. So that's the kind of a goal library schools or any school, engineering school, management school should have. Generally, if you go to software companies, why we hire new people? Because we expect that they come with a new programming language, new skills and all of that. We have a leadership, we have expertise, but we need that young guys with the new skills. If you don't really nurture them, ask them to develop new skills which can be implemented, and you are not running an effective institution. That's what I mean to say. Then learn to upskill and be innovative, and skills, it's not a one-time journey, and it's a continuous, and whoever is really continuously learning, they are really, upskilling and innovative, they are really becoming successful and grow. So most important thing is library and librarians should really align to organization. There is no point in cribbing and criticizing the organization. Your job is, as a library and information center, you are a subset of organization, and you align to organization and think of solutions. And if you don't like organization, quit the job, but you have no job, no business of really criticizing the organization. It's good for you as an individual, it's good for the organization. That's what I feel. And so that's briefly, and also I took this slide. Generally, when you come to market, you come to know what are the skills really people talking about in demand and all of that. I copied this slide, and this gives this source. It's not my slide, and this is the skills for the industry as of 2020. Soft skills and hard skills. Some agencies, HR consulting firms, they keep doing this kind of a mapping. Sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not work. But this is the slide you see on the internet. Soft skills, people are expecting to you have creative thinking, collaboration skills, persuasion, time management, critical thinking, focus on emotional quotient, those things. Social media skills, most importantly. Hard skills, particularly for computer and IT industry. Cloud computing, blockchain, artificial intelligence, UX design, video production, social media marketing, and all of that. So I think as long as artificial intelligence and machine learning is there somewhere, I don't see the ML. So machine learning should be added to this. So this is the kind of a thing. And we can also look at, as a LIS professional, you can look at these hard skills and see which is really less complicated to learn, and is there any way to really apply them and implement them, kind of a thing. That is the kind of a thought process we can apply when you look at this slide. So I just wanted to give you a flavor. So what makes a difference in career when it comes to skills after learning the skills and art? So see, sometimes people think that your highest qualification will give you a good job. If you are really educated from the best universities in the world, you get a better job, and then global experience and all of that. I was having a panel discussion with one of the HR and all of that in one of the organization. He was a very senior HR person, worked for bigger organizations like IBM, Amazon, and all of that. He said one thing, I think that will be useful for all the younger professionals as well who are listening to this. Your skills are important, qualification is important, your background is important, your experience is important. But what can really make a big difference, you as an individual, is your passion. That's what he said. Say, for example, when as a HR head was telling, when he's interviewing people, when you find 2-3 people who are on par with each other in terms of skills, in terms of education, experience, and all of that, the differentiator is passion. If this guy or this girl has energy, passion to do things, and that can go a long way. So if you are not passionate about what you're doing, and it's best to really figure out what is the other job which we really have a passion. I think if you don't have a passion, I don't think we have a long way to go. And in my opinion, I'm very kind of aspirational. I try to do experiments and all kind of thing. What can make you a very unique, different, successful library science professional? So in my opinion, we should learn to Googleize libraries. What I mean to say Googleize libraries in the sense, if you look at Google, all of us know this, no open secret. Google's aim is to organize world's information and knowledge. And for an end user, it's a search company. But at the back end, it is a threat for ad companies. He makes money out of advertisement. So if I relate that to libraries, I don't think we should really get rid of books. We should have books. It's our core. And in the name of books, position your library as beyond books. And position it as a solution provider, as Satya said. Look at information is a big domain. Look at every area of information and see if library can pitch in and really come out with the solutions. And that will position as a greater profession, more impactful profession. So that's briefly what I had. Am I on time?
Yeah. You are right on time.
Okay.
Dr. Pooja, okay, Dr. Pooja, can you take up some questions?
Yes, good evening, Anand. It's a fantastic lecture. There are some questions, which one is that basically what LIS professionals can learn to build their up skills, what kind of skills are required and where they can learn. And the second part of the question is, do you have any plans to start that kind of a skill building program at IISc?
So the way I look at that is, say, for example, there are a lot of advertisements and things coming up. Come and join us, we make you data scientist. Come and join us, we give you machine learning training and all of that. I think the best way to learn is, get into your project. While doing the project, you learn that you can really do that. That is the way I look at that. But nothing wrong in learning new skills in a lot of schools. For example, Elsevier, in collaboration with some US schools, have started a very structured program on data management. I think they are running at the international level, and I don't know how popular that is in India. And there are ways. IISc, at this point of time, we don't have any plans to really start anything because we are learning. So we need some more time to learn. Probably, maybe.
They are asking about basically that elaborate more on that Raspberry Pi for OPAC.
Raspberry Pi?
Yeah.
Can you open Google and show the just Raspberry Pi type. Okay, Raspberry Pi, I'll tell you, it's a very simple thing. The background of Google, yeah, you go to Google. First search that. So when you are on the phone, when you are on the Google, just go to Google and say Raspberry Pi. Restrict search to images, and you see a one Raspberry Pi picture. So it's basically a computer with a OS inbuilt in that. It was designed for African countries as a low-cost computer. When universities in Africa and all that, they were struggling to really get personal computers for all students. Yeah. So they developed that, and it's open source thing. And I'll click no. Okay. So you click on any of that. This is actually Raspberry Pi. It's actually, in my opinion, 2 inch by 2 inch or 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch. That's it. So if you look at that skeleton, it has everything. It has got a camera. It has got a USB port. It has got all of that storage and everything. And there is an operating system as well. You can increase the storage. So in fact, it comes with a box sometimes. So yeah, it's a very small, tiny one. It's double the size of the small matchbox. It's exactly that. So it's a very simple one. Take it, connect it to your monitor and keyboard you need.
So larger matchbox.
Yeah, no, it's exactly, larger matchbox. It's, you need to be play with that couple of hours, and you figure it out, how to really configure that. As I said, in IISc, we run OPAC machines by using Raspberry Pi. I thought, in IISc, it's a research organization, not many people will search books or working users. So we thought of experimenting this, and it's working perfect.
Anand, the next question is about what kind of project initiatives versus the technical skills required in different kind of libraries.
Can you repeat that, Joe?
There are different project initiatives versus the technical skills required in different kind of libraries, corporate, academic, special libraries.
So I gave an example. For example, I had one slide completely for corporate projects driven for, in corporates, and the other one we initiated in IISc. But I think, in my opinion, you should get that idea. The way we initiated all these things is, one is useful to only library. Ideally, the initiative should be cutting across the institute. When you sit in, say, for example, Senate meetings, council meetings, and all of that, when the presentations happen, conversations happen, pick up something, see if you can get some idea. Come back and see if you can drive that as an initiative. Those kind of things. But ideally, the way is, go ahead, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the way I look at that is, instead of waiting for somebody to give a project, you pick up something ideally, which is useful for your staff to pick up the, develop the skills, and it will have an impact on the organization. That will really go a long way than you doing project by force by somebody. You may not like that project, you may not really have skill to execute that, or you don't know how to do that and all kind of thing. But I think end of the day, if you are proactive, my experience, if you are proactive and if your team can really support you, and there is no limit to really get the projects and do initiatives. And in IISc, in last 2.5 years, I think we have done about 8 or 9 initiatives. Most of them are really unique kind of thing.
Yeah, the next question is Six Sigma important for LIS professionals?
I think Six Sigma is very important. Say, for example, wherever you have numbers, wherever you have data, and there is a deficiency of surveys, that really helps a lot. See, one common example I can give you is, I have given this, the bigger libraries have about lakhs of books. When a user comes, when he searches for a book, we fail to give a context-based content. Opaque. Say for example, you use Koha, use Lexis, whatever is that. When people do search statistics, for example, you may have 200 books on statistics. Which statistics book I should read, or which is the most popular, or which is the book which was referred by faculty, things like that you can do. Or say for example, that's the one. The other thing is, say for example, you have a lot of circulation count data. Particularly if you go to IITs, their counters are busy, and there are a lot of crowd because 10,000, 12,000 students will be there. You have to look at what is the problem area, and that problem area should be converted into statistical problem, and then you can apply Six Sigma, you can solve the problem. It's very interesting. Six Sigma essence is take the problem, see if you can quantify that, convert that into statistical problem, then give the statistical solution that will become eventually the solution for that. There is a process. There are a lot of books which are self-explanatory. You can experiment, and there are some organizations which can train people, do the project, and give the certification, and that helps a lot, provided you are into operations or into process improvement and all of that. We can do one workshop if all of you want. Six Sigma for LIS processes, something like that we can cover.
There's one more question: how big data can be applied to libraries?
In my opinion, no data from library will qualify for a big data. If you look at real definition of the big data, but if you look at the research projects, research data and all, that's where big data will come in. But I haven't seen in academics anybody talking about big data. In IIC, there are one or two projects that's astronomy related things and all kind of a thing. I don't have exposure to that, but there are some departments who are doing that. But in library science, no data will call. I don't think any library will have a data which can qualify to. You take circulation data, books data, all of that. I don't think we're really there for a big data yet. That's my opinion.
Thank you. That's all about from my side. Thank you.
Yeah, sir, Dr. Konnur, can I add to what Dr. Bhairappa just said regarding the research data management?
Repeat again, Vishal.
So Dr. Anand Bhairappa mentioned that there is a research data management program for librarians. Right. So do you want me to talk about it a little bit?
Actually, it will help a lot of people if we can. One is briefly talking about that and sharing that by email to all participants.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I will put it up on my slide also, but just to elaborate on what you said, this was actually launched in 2019 in October, and it was a Research Data Management Librarian Academy. And it has basically 8 modules, 8 units that you talk about. And it talks about foundation of research data management, navigating research data culture, advocating and marketing the value of RDM in libraries, launching data services in libraries, and also talks about coding tools and overview of platforms like Open Science Framework, Mendeley Data, etc. So this is one of the programs that you were talking about. Apart from this, Elsevier has a separate website for librarians. So if you go to the Elsevier portal and just type librarians.elsevier, you will get to a website where all the tools required for library professionals to develop themselves. There are a lot of free tools and courses that are available. We also do a Scopus certification program for librarians, and this year close to 40 librarians from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they have actually joined that certification program, and they are being certified as Scopus certified librarians. So these are few of the initiatives, but as you said, there are a lot of initiatives, free tools and free courses that librarians can take up to develop themselves. And I'll talk more about it later. Thank you, sir, for mentioning that.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Pooja, for moderating the sessions. And I thank Dr. Anand Bhairappa and Satya for sharing their valuable thoughts and giving a complete idea about the picture of library manpower marketing, how what should be the vision of our profession in large, and what should be the stand of our profession in the post-COVID period, and all these things were made known to all of us. I thank both the speakers. And friends, many of you must have posed a lot of questions, and very few have been chosen by Dr. Pooja, and many of them must have been disappointed and unanswered. Please do not worry. All of your questions, what are the valid questions, will be transferred to the speakers, and the speakers will in turn will answer them, and the written answers for those questions will be put on our LIS Academy website to all of you, and we will communicate you also. Generally we will communicate all the questions and answers to all the participants who have participated in this session, and I am sure in due course of time, whatever the shortcomings what we have encountered today will overcome, and future days to come will make it more user friendly, participant friendly, and let us have a new kind of a platform, because it is an inevitable platform for us. We will have to live with COVID, live with such situation, live with this social distancing, all these things. So let us keep continuing our digital existence in future days to come, and let us make ourselves more and more efficient in these areas also. I thank almost about 1,200 to 1,300 participants have participated today. Maybe there are some issues with logging in issues and all for our participants. Most of them are shooting their mails to our mail account. Unfortunately, we are engaged with this webinar so that we are not able to assist them also. But I am sure tomorrow morning again we will try to help them, assist them, bring them to the platform. I thank all of you for being with us. Friends, I would like to bring one more important thing, is that tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock there will be two speakers like Dr. Aditya Tripathi and Rahul Agarwal. Aditya Tripathi will be discussing on digital content creation, digitalization technologies, etc. And Rahul Agarwal is an industry person. He is the founder of Nimbus, managing partner at Sincere Partner Nimbus Gurgaon, India, and his topic is digital transformation of libraries and education. Both of them are, one is a teacher and one is an industry. Both of them will be giving a different kind of reviews tomorrow. I request, it is very interesting tomorrow. I request all of you to join us. But tomorrow meeting ID is, I think it is displayed there, and our cursor is being marked there. And you also know tomorrow's meeting ID, and the password is common for every day, that is LISA capture. Same for all Sundays. This is same for all Sundays. 9475258964. You can also keep it. I mean, for your memory for all the Sundays. Saturdays, what you are logging today is logging meeting ID. For today will be for all the Saturdays. Thank you very much for being with us. I thank Elsevier people for organizing this, helping us to organize it and making it happen. I thank all of you for being with us during this time. And LIS Academy and LCSI.net will definitely struggle hard to reach you to your doorsteps. Thank you one and all. Vishal, you would like to make comment?
No, sir. Thank you. You said enough, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See you tomorrow. All the resource person will join us at 10:30, and all the participants will join us at 11 o'clock. 10:45.